Vice Mayor. I'm here. Let's do it.
All right. This is Vice Mayor Keating. I call the Workforce Readiness and Economic Vitality Committee meeting to order. Due to concerns over exposure to the coronavirus, the city has implemented measures to protect our community, including the closing of council chambers and limiting public attendance to electronic means only. Members of the public may attend the meeting virtually through Cisco WebEx events or view the meeting recording by visiting www.tempe.gov/WREV for more information. It's important to understand that no formal votes or decisions about city programs, policies, or budgets will happen here. Our role is to explore various topics with staff and stakeholders and community members, and to make recommendations to our council colleagues. We want this process to be transparent, inclusive, and easy for you to be a part of whenever you choose to be. And you can share your thoughts with us by filling out a comment card about any item on the meeting agenda or by reaching out to us directly with any other thoughts, questions, or ideas. We need you to fill out a comment card in advance so that card can be read into the record for any agendized item. The link for comment cards can be found on our committee webpage at tempe.gov/WREV, and you'll also find contact information for the committee members and staff there for non-agendized questions as well. I'd like to call to order the January 24th, 2022 meeting of the Workforce Readiness and Economic Vitality Committee. Councilmember Hernandez Savage.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move to approve the November 22nd, 2021 meeting minutes.
All right, I second that motion.
Aye.
Yes. All right. Great. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay, the next item, or actually, no, actually, I guess I should ask if there are any public comments. I'm so sorry about that. Timmy G, any public comments? I'll take it as a no. What do you think, Vice Mayor?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was double muted. No, we did not receive any. No.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, back to double mute. Okay. Go ahead, Vice Mayor, on you.
Sure. Our first item is item 4A1, and that is a Tempe pre-audit. And with that, we're going to welcome our city auditor, Bill Green, to give a brief presentation on the Tempe pre-audit. Mr. Green.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor Keating and Councilmember Hernandez Savage, for inviting me today to discuss the Tempe pre-audit request. I am a bit under the weather, so I apologize in advance if my voice goes in and out. I have a short PowerPoint presentation, but I mainly put it together to help guide a discussion as opposed to making a presentation. So please do interrupt me at any time to ask questions or make comments or tell me to go faster. With that, Tim, next slide. This first slide shows that the Tempe pre-program is, as you know, related to the quality of life council priority and also lists the 4 related performance measures. Next slide. As I mentioned at the start, my goal really is to have a discussion, and specifically the intent of that conversation is to help gain consensus on the Tempe pre-audit objectives. So I do have a few audit objectives suggestions myself that I'm going to share, but obviously I'm very interested in your ideas and your feedback on what I've got down. Next slide. I won't bore you with the technical audit process details, but I included this slide to really show that the development of the audit objectives is one of the first steps in the audit process, and also to sort of set up a brief discussion about audit criteria, which is the next slide. So audit criteria are the policies, procedures, requirements that we as auditors use as a reference to compare against audit evidence. So for example, if one of our audit objectives is to determine if a program is complying with the law, the associated audit criteria for that objective are, statutes, federal regulations, or whatever other legal requirements that a program needs to follow. So I really point this out just because to do an effective audit, you have to have sufficient audit criteria. So otherwise, really, what you get is just the opinion of the auditor, which may not be worth too much. So as we develop audit objectives, one important consideration to keep in mind is whether there is sufficient criteria out there to help answer the question. Next slide. So I know you both are very familiar with the prior Tempe pre-evaluations. I included this slide really as a reference to show that when I was considering audit objectives, one of the goals is to not duplicate previous audit work. So in this case, the focus of that previous work was program evaluation oriented. And so when I threw out some audit objectives, I kind of avoided those program evaluation type objectives and steps. Next slide. So the next reference point in suggesting audit objectives was to try to align them with the general direction that provided by the Rev Committee in its memo to the Council. So in particular, when I read through that memo, there were three phrases or concepts that stood out to me. So first is that the audit should focus on current status versus a look back at time or historical recap of a period of time, as many audits might do. So for instance, if you're doing a financial audit, you might go backwards and say, I'm looking at this particular fiscal year. So the first thing was we're talking about current status. The second was a focus on program readiness to accept future funding from government programs. And then lastly, there seemed to be an interest in suggestions for improvement. So next slide. So given that guidance and to get the ball rolling, I put a few suggestions on this slide, which are shown here. Again, these are just suggestions, so I certainly want your feedback, see if I missed the boat, ideas for other ideas or edits to them. So let me take a quick run through here. So kind of with a nod to that first general direction, all of these objectives focus on current activities as opposed to a historic look back. So for example, the first objective, audit objective of does Tempe Pre meet requirements to receive potential funding from the Build Back Better Act? So that aligns directly, hopefully, with the readiness to accept future funding direction that was given in the memo. The second suggestion are controls in place to ensure compliance with Tempe Pre funding requirements. Also attempts to address that question of readiness for funding. So often new funding relies on the demonstrated ability of that agency to spend their existing funds in accordance with requirements. So granting agencies will often take a look at that and ask questions about existing system of controls to help them determine whether they want to give you additional money. So the last suggested objective, what is Tempe Pre organizational structure and how does it compare to similar programs? I put this in as sort of to address that more general Rev direction of exploring opportunities to enhance the program. Often a good place to start with that question is through comparison to other programs. And I guess I should also point out that an underlying goal of the first two objectives would also be to make suggested improvements in those particular areas. So with that, I just wanted to get the ball, a conversation going and kind of get your reaction and feedback to those and thoughts.
Councilmember Reynaldo Savage.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. I mean, I think it's going to be really good. I think first and foremost, one of the things that we talked about was if the Build Back Better does come up and we have the ability to fund our pre-K, we want us to be in the best position possible to be able to get that. So I think you captured that with one of the things you said. Just a couple of things that I was thinking, and I don't know if these are things that you can incorporate, Bill, or you can think about it, or if it doesn't really fit within an audit, maybe this is work we need to do outside of an audit. And I think for me, when we talk about it, currently we have 3 different programs that we utilize basically in the city of Tempe. One through Kid Zone, pre-K, and then we also Tempe L has a program too. So I don't know if it's possible through that audit process that we evaluate them and making sure that they're all working together and really complementing each other and leveraging each other, and everybody is on the same page with that. That was kind of one of the things. And I know you talked about data, statistics, and kind of where we are now, and I'm wondering, should we look into, because this program has been around for 6 years, where are those kids now? I mean, the whole intent was to really help and benefit and a quality of life for our community. Are those kids that have come through our preschool program, are they still in our community? Are they doing awesome things in our school districts right here in our own community? Kind of one of the things I was kind of wondering too. And then also we talked about, which I think was one of these unintended consequences, which is a positive thing, is the ability for us to connect with all the families of the students that were in our preschool programs. And do we leverage that data a little bit more and really understand, what kind of specific things are we doing, to work with those families, and, how beneficial has it been? I've heard a few stories, and I mean, it sounds really great, but to me, that may really help us build our case, if we do have the ability to look for more funding. And I like how you talked about industry standards and trends, and how do we compare to that, in the sense of, I think one of the biggest challenges for us is funding, right? So, when it comes to other cities, I mean, I know that a lot of you guys that have already been living and breathing this have some of this homework, but it's probably a good reminder is, what are in the other industries, other cities that have successfully done that, what are their expectations? Is it the fact that, yeah, we intend to subsidize this because it is providing such an incredible service, and we should expect to pay X amount of dollars and then hopefully leverage funding from somewhere else? I mean, I think that would be really great. But for me, I think I really just want to really understand what our expectations can be with all these factors, at least that I've talked about. And I think, Bill, that you've seen in that earlier presentation is, how are we ensuring that we're all working together in sync? We've got great benchmarks of where we want to be. It can't be just about kids' numbers. It's got to be about what happens to those kids and how does that really impact our community after they've had the experience of our, high quality program. So I know that was a lot, Vice Mayor and Bill, but if those are some of the questions that I've kind of had, if there's a way to wrap that in there, that's great. Or is that, would you suggest, and you don't even have to tell me now, you can get back to us and say, hey, maybe we can look at this a little bit more comprehensively and then come up with some other ways to do a little bit deep dive in some of these other questions. So that's what I was hoping that we can incorporate through the audit, if possible. My 2 cents, Vice Mayor. So back to you.
Thank you very much. I totally agree with what your assessment and what you're looking for. I think as long as we can put ourselves in the best possible position to not only keep the program going, but utilize possible federal funding in the future while understanding the impact, Tempe Pre has on a more broad level in the city, I think that'd be fantastic. So I like what, the objectives you laid out, and Councilmember Arredondo Savage's comments as well.
Great. Thank you very much for the feedback. I think relative to your question, Councilmember Arredondo Savage, I think that probably the easiest thing is to add these comments that you made to our list, and then, as we probably sit down with Naomi and Marie and their staff and hammer them through and say, okay, how can we incorporate some of those concepts into our audit objectives here, and then maybe circle back with you and say, here's what we came up with. Does this make sense? Does it hit the issue, or are some of these things separate? But I think the easiest answer is, let's just add them to the list, try to take a stab at getting at what you're looking for. And then some of the stuff will shake out once we start getting into it, right? Once we start doing our work, doing the planning and doing the evaluation, and say, well, okay, which of these things can we really answer? Is there data available? Which we may or may not know at the really preliminary phase. So I'm not sure if that
No,
makes
yeah,
sense
that's
to you.
perfect. Solid. Yeah, thanks, Bill. That totally answered my question. I love that perspective and that approach. I think that'll work great. And I would say too, is as you talk to Naomi and Allison and Marie, that if they've got other things that they would like to incorporate, I'm totally fine with adding that to the discussion too. So I'm totally good with that. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, totally good with that too.
Great, thanks. That's how we'll proceed then.
Much. Anything else, Bill?
Nope, thanks. I think I've got what I need for now.
All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let's see here. Moving along. Our next item is item B1, and that's or 4B1, workforce coordinator position. And let's see, I'm not sure who is. Oh, it looks like Human Services Manager Marie Raymond is going to be presenting on this topic. Marie?
Yes, good afternoon. So Marie Raymond, Human Services Manager. And oh, Tim, are you going to be sharing, or will I share the slides? I guess he's double muted. We'll let Tim do it.
No, I was double muted again. Sorry, hold on. Here, I'm making you presenter now, okay?
All right, thank you. Okay, so the purpose of this presentation is to discuss a joint budget supplemental request that's being submitted by Human Services and Economic Development to create a workforce development coordinator position. So this aligns with the City Council priority financial stability and vitality, and it addresses performance measure 5.01, which is to achieve the ratings of very satisfied or satisfied with the overall level and quality of business services provided by the City of Tempe, greater than or equal to the national benchmark cities as measured in the business survey. So again, this is a joint budget supplemental request from Human Services and Economic Development that would create a workforce development coordinator position. Businesses consistently rank finding and retaining quality talent as a top need to make their business successful. And a dedicated workforce development coordinator position will facilitate the connection between the business need and available local talent. And this will increase the level of satisfaction with the city's business services. What we're proposing would be a complementary position to the current workforce development coordinator and youth workforce specialist positions that we have through a funding partnership with Arizona at Work, Maricopa County. This position would connect businesses and groups of businesses within industries to training and sourcing resources that provide them with a pipeline of qualified workers. The position will coordinate cohorts of students or existing workers with training providers such as ASU, UAT, or the Maricopa Community Colleges to train them in high demand fields for local industry employers. We know that Tempe often leads the region and state in attracting quality jobs and employers, and a primary reason for that success has been the accessibility to talent. However, currently, the Tempe business community's primary concern is lack of available and adequately trained talent to fill critical positions. With the labor challenges created by the COVID pandemic, businesses are struggling to attract and retain talent, and without dedicated resources to help, Tempe could lose its competitive edge. Creating the workforce development coordinator position will help to assess workforce services needed by employers that could be referred by economic development and other city colleagues and partners. By working together with the Arizona at Work workforce development coordinator, our workforce development coordinator will be supporting job seekers, training them, and connecting them with employers to help alleviate economic pressures and fill talent gaps. Creating this position will allow businesses to be more competitive by giving them access to that greater pool of skilled individuals. It will help to facilitate the conversations and connections between the business need, training providers, and job seekers. And this position will also serve as a bridge between Human Services Department programs, economic development's business clients, and our education partners. Some examples of this coordination could be referring employers to education partners for customized training or recruitment assistance based on assessed need. Could hold quarterly meetings with education partners for updates on their programs for Tempe companies and residents. And those partners could include ASU, UAT, the Maricopa Community Colleges, EVIT, and even Tempe Union High School District with its CTE program. Could also host quarterly meetings with candidate sourcing agencies and nonprofits to understand candidate trends and availability. And some of those agencies could include Arizona at Work, Maricopa County, Pipeline AZ, Career Connectors, TCAA, Goodwill, Area Agency on Aging, and Veterans Employment Services. The position can assist our Tempe Works program, Career Ready Tempe, and Geeks Night Out programs with employer introductions and helping to secure partnerships. And our City of Tempe Human Resources will explore how this position can assist the City of Tempe as an employer in sourcing qualified candidates. This position is being developed in collaboration with Jill Bushbacher from Economic Development and myself from Human Services. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have about this supplemental request.
I don't have any questions, but I do think this is a much needed position, and I'm excited that it's being brought forward, and very hopeful that it ends up getting funded. And I think we'll do a lot of good for the various programs you mentioned in the city, and hopefully, help even further establish Tempe as a business and a workforce forward city. Councilmember Redondo Savage.
I think you said it, Vice Mayor. I 100% agree. I can't say anything more than what you did. I would just wonder, is there anything that we can do from our perspective to help, or is this maybe something that we should just take note of, do a supplemental process, and just really help everybody understand how valuable this position can really be, and I think just create a lot of synergy through some of the things that we're doing, and could really leverage and take us kind of to that next level. So I'm welcome to any feedback that you may have or any ways that we can help you through that process. But absolutely, just like the Vice Mayor said, I'm all in and think it's just a really great idea. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for the feedback. And I think, yes, just being aware that this is coming through the budget supplemental process and the impact that this position could have, and your support on that is very much appreciated.
Great, thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation. Let's see, our next item. All right, folks, I got to switch screens here. Our next item is item 4B2, and that is our downtown business update. I'd like to welcome Downtown Tempe Authority Executive Director Kate Borders and Chief Strategy Officer Lori Foster. Are they here?
Yes, sir. I'm going to elevate them right now.
Great, thank you very much.
Hey, Kate, you're elevated.
Great. Thank you, Tim. So you guys can hear us okay?
Yep.
All right. Now, just out of curiosity, Tim, are you going to advance the slides or do you want me to?
Yeah, whatever's easiest for you.
Do I just...
Do you want me to advance them? I can do that, or I can give you the power.
No, I'm happy to. Yeah, give me the power.
Okay. Incoming. Okay, you should be able to share your screen.
Great. All right. So thank you so much for having us today. It's always a pleasure to talk about what's happening in downtown, and we're really grateful for your time, and the fact that you wanted to hear this update is wonderful. So our plan today is to kind of walk you through a recent canvas that Lori Foster did in answer to the question of, how are the businesses doing right now? And we do this on a regular basis, but she's going to give you an update on what they're saying kind of in real time. And then I'll come back and talk a little bit about what we are doing as a response to that. Some of the things we already were doing, some of them are in partnership with you, the city. And so it'll just be a little bit of a heads up of, this is coming your way. And if you have any other thoughts on ways that we can kind of come at some of these challenges, we're all ears. So I'm going to hand things over to Lori.
Great. Thanks, Kate. So I thought I would start off by sharing some statistics from year end of 2021. And all up, last year, there were 43 business openings in the downtown district. And when I'm talking about businesses, I'm only referring to street level merchants. There were 13 business closings. We started off the year with about 70% local businesses, and then ended the year with about 66% local. Started the year with 165 businesses, ended up with 153, representing the top retail categories, predominantly dining, restaurant, bar, followed by shopping, and then personal services such as beauty and health. We subscribed to a program called Placer AI, and we're able to count the number of visitors to the downtown district. In 2021, 2.66 million. 1.75 in 2020, and for frame of reference, 2019, 2.7 million people to the downtown district. And then also on the screen, a review of some of the district tax revenue from 2017 to 2021, keeping in mind that those are fiscal years. So 2021 represents sales tax revenue through June of 2021, which you can see the impacts of the COVID pandemic. Since then, into the fall and starting into 2021, there's double and triple digit sales tax revenue increases, which is good to see. Next slide, please. So every quarter, I canvass the downtown merchants to see how they're doing. I've done this pre-COVID and continue to do so. The last one I did was in September of 2021 and just completed one last week in first part of January. The process includes an online survey through SurveyMonkey. It includes making phone calls, emails, and then visits to the premise of the downtown merchants. And in this particular survey, I asked a couple of questions. What are your top 3 challenges right now? What can the city do to help you? What can DTA do to help you? And what is an idea of your 3 to 5 year forecast for your business? So utilizing that process, I had 38 respondents within that time, that week, representing about 25% of the street level businesses at this point, with a pretty good representation, 50% restaurant, bar, retail, and then services. Interesting enough, it was the respondents represented 30% large corporate types, and majority of them were small independents. Not all of the survey takers answered all of the questions, but from those that did, 68% of them mentioned that staffing, hiring, and retention are three of their, or within the top 3 of their challenges. Specifically, staffing, especially right now, the biggest headache is sickness and people that are out due to being ill and not able to cover their shifts at work, causing a lot of impacts like odd hours for businesses and some days for smaller businesses not even being able to open. Of course, hiring is still an issue, and as well as retention, although from what I'm hearing from the restaurants, a lot of the struggles are in back of house at this point. 48% of the respondents indicated that lack of foot traffic or a shift in foot traffic is presenting a challenge to their business. Sales are up across the board, but the times that those sales are happening has shifted. Busiest time of the week is Thursday through Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Lunchtime traffic is still struggling. Not surprising news, the supply chain presents a lot of challenges on any given day. You never know if you're going to be able to order cups or ham or eggs or whatever the challenge may be, which presents some challenges. Cost of goods and labor, 25% of them mentioned that that was a challenge. And then there were a bunch of things that just kind of dumped into a category called COVID uncertainty, not knowing exactly what shoe is going to drop next and how they can respond to that. So their top needs fell into the categories. Number 1 being bringing more people downtown. So many of them mentioned large scale events. They're grateful that they're coming back. They want more of them. They really see an impact on their sales and their business during those events. And as always, those events get them through traditionally the slower times of summer and holiday. So they're very important. 37% of them mentioned they could use some help with making sure that people know that their business is open, and they would appreciate promotion of their business so that their customers know that they're in business still. 37% of them mentioned some sort of grant or no-cost loan, specifically for use for labor costs, for hiring, for retention. A few of them even mentioned some assistance with rent, although that wasn't as high in demand as it has been in previous months. Many of them mentioned dealing with homeless, vagrants, security, which in every canvas that I've done for the merchants. These are topics that show up on every response from the merchants. And then the fifth category, COVID protocols, it's kind of all over the place. There are some businesses that would like more of them. There are some businesses that would like fewer of them or none of them. Of course, parking is always an issue for a lot of downtown merchants in terms of the cost of parking and lighting. Also, this time of year, coming off of the holiday season with downtown lit up for the holidays, and then how pretty it looks, and also lighting provides a measure of safety for customers and employees as well. The response to date from what I like to call Team Tempe, the City of Tempe, DTA, Tempe Tourism, the Chamber of Commerce, and Local First Arizona, we've been very strategic in our assistance in terms of small business assistance, the programs, the loans, and the grants that have been available throughout the pandemic, responding to the hiring needs with the job monsoon last July and the job blizzard just last week, the city's patio expansion program, the terrific event partnerships that we've had with the city to create Park After Dark last summer and Second Sundays on Mill. Those have made an impact for the businesses. The implementation with the Downtown Discover Pass, which is a mobile pass incentivizing people to visit merchants downtown for discounts and swag from our organization. And then the addition of merchant spotlights, highlighting specific merchants, promoting them, and then marketing campaigns, Saving Local, the holiday campaign, and the upcoming spring campaign have all been responses to their needs based on these canvases. Overall, an overwhelming response of businesses that replied to this question, 51% indicated that they were positive about the forecast of their business, although they were still a little unsure in the short term due to some of the challenges, but long term, they're excited about the development that's happening. They're excited about streetcar. They're excited about things returning to whatever the new normal is. 5% of them responded in a negative way. They're not very hopeful. Many of those were smaller mom and pop businesses that may or may not have been able to take advantage of funding that was available. And then 17% indicated they weren't sure about their forecasts. They just don't know what's going to happen next. And so they're being as nimble and as resilient as they can, but hopeful. And there's just some anecdotal quotes below that I picked up in conversations as well as from some of the survey responses from the businesses. So that gives you an idea of the most recent canvas of businesses. And I'm going to turn it back over to Kate so that she can address some of the other issues as a result of our response to the needs of the merchants.
So thank you, Lori. I think one of the challenges when Lori goes out and does these canvases is that we hear very similar things on a regular basis. And so it feels like, are we doing everything we can? Because we keep hearing the same challenges. And it also, we're often looking for some kind of like silver bullet, like, oh, now this is an issue and it's something super easy to fix and let's just get out there and do it. And so that isn't the case. You know, we're continuing to hear some of the same things, but on the flip side, it's good because there are things that we are already addressing because we've known about many of these items before this particular canvas. So, you know, as she mentioned, they talked about lighting and infrastructure and how that even helps with security and the feeling of safety. And so we, as you all know, this is one of our main core programs is keeping downtown clean and safe. And so we are continuing to do all of that. And we're actually back up to normal staffing at this point in time on both of those programs for us internally. And then also, I'm really excited about working with Marilyn DeRosa and your team on a streetscape redesign for Mill Avenue, which hasn't happened since the mid-'80s. And you're going to be getting a presentation on this and a request for funding to fund it in April 21st at a work study session. So this is just a little bit of a heads up. This design, we started working with J2 in June of 2020 and have had many meetings in person and virtual since then and worked through all of the scope of the design. And it will include everything from street treatments, sidewalk treatments, shade, lighting, new lighting, not just, safety and kind of the redesign of existing lighting, but also lighting that adds character to the downtown. So I'm hopeful that you see a value in that, and I would love your support as we present that on April 21st. And next, they mentioned that one of their biggest challenges is foot traffic, and they also mentioned that one of their biggest ways that we can assist is through events. So first off, thank you for being supportive of us returning with many of our large scale events. We had a fantastic fourth quarter. People were out in record numbers, and our vendors were saying that sales were, some vendors came to us and said, in 30 years, this is the best show that I've ever done. So sales were high, people were spending money, people wanted to get out, and they were safe because it was an outdoor event. And we continue to do things like placemaking, both through our programmatic efforts on our end and in partnership with the city. And as you know, like, our big events are back. And then continuing with, as Lori mentioned earlier, some of our event partnerships. We started Park After Dark this past summer, which was a Saturday evening event. It kind of encouraged people to come out and treat 6th Street Park as if it was their own backyard. That was our intent. And to come out maybe before or after dinner. We didn't have lots of food available so that they would go to the restaurants and support the restaurants. And it was very successful. We had people coming out. We didn't know if they would come out in the heat of the summer, and they did. Second Sundays, we started as, the goal was to try to close the street on a regular basis and have people come downtown for this kind of novelty of walking in the streets on Mill Avenue, because it's not often that it's closed. And also encouraging the merchants to do extensions and come out. And so that has been really successful. And we will be coming back to you with Keith Burke and his team on a request to continue this partnership in this coming summer and next year moving forward, your upcoming fiscal year. So I think you'll see that in your supplemental requests. And I would also love to have your support on that. And then I put the picture of the electrical boxes on there because we also have been working with your public art department, and happy to say that all of the boxes will be redone. Artists have been selected, gone through the process of a call to artists and a jury process. And the live painting will actually take place at Second Sundays in February. So it'll be exciting to see those new and freshly done. And I think you're going to love the works. They're really incredible. And then regarding the concern about safety and homelessness, as I mentioned, we are finally back up to our staffing levels, which we were seeing the same challenges that everyone was seeing. And so that's, we're hopeful that that will help address some of this. And also we know that PD has been down in their staffing levels, and in meeting with the chief, he shared with me that a typical bike cop would have about, or a typical bike patrol, when they are fully staffed, there are about 16 officers in that unit, and we're down by 6. So that's a pretty big percentage for the coverage in downtown. So we, I've been asking the chief to try his best to get us back up to normal staffing levels as soon as possible, and he's hopeful that that will return in April. And one of the challenges when we have something that happens in downtown, the needs of downtown are very different than the rest of the city. And if a South Tempe patrol officer responds to those needs, they often just aren't aware of the situation and kind of the protocols or how things go downtown. So it's not advantageous to us to not have that full bike patrol unit staffed. So I'm grateful that that will be returned to normal in the near future. So that's sort of what we see at this point. We would love to hear from you what your thoughts are. If there are other suggestions of ways that we could help the merchants, that's what we're all about, and ways that we could work with you, or if there are things that you think we should be doing, open to any suggestions and or questions for myself and Lori.
Thank you very much, Kate and Lori. Councilmember Robin Arredondo Savage.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Thanks, Kate and Lori. I love this stuff. I love hearing like what's going on in the downtown area. I just want to say you guys are just doing really remarkable things, and have just been so creative and thinking out of the box and just trying to figure out what ways to just activate downtown. So thank you so much for doing that. And I really time. I mean, we need to make sure that we're doing our part. And it sounds like the partnership that you guys have really developed and worked on is doing exactly what a partnership should do, right? You know, stronger together and do a lot more together when we leverage each other. So I love that. I'm all in. I don't have a problem supporting everything that you said, but I got a couple questions for you, Kate, because I think, you know, one of the things that we've talked about is sometimes, as much as we try to be creative and do a lot of cool things downtown, I mean, downtown is tired when it comes to just infrastructure and the way things look. And I know you guys are continuing doing everything that you can, from power washing, cleaning, you know, to keep things clean. But you know, at some point, when you talked about that streetscape, I would kind of like for you to just talk a little bit more about what that might be. Or is it one of those things that you're working in the process of developing? That would be one of my questions, because I think that's fantastic. I love that. And then when you talk about, you didn't say a whole lot more about like the homeless situation. You mentioned it's a concern, and I understand that, and it is a concern, I think, throughout Tempe. But also, what could we be doing, or what kind of an outcome are you looking for to improve that situation? Or is that tied to the presence of having more officers downtown, and why that changes the dynamics of having more police officers down there? Because I know it's different, and I respect that. So I guess I just kind of wanted to hear a little bit more from that perspective of what you're thinking. And I want people to feel safe first and foremost. So whatever it looks like in regards of lighting, or, you know, presence of other individuals down there, then I definitely am all in, because I want everybody to feel safe. And I saw some of your statistics, and I think that you guys are doing a lot of things really right, to be able to see that many more businesses open up in the middle of a pandemic. So you guys, just thank you for what you do. So that's my 2 cents, my questions and my thoughts, and very happy to support this as it moves through, and we get to bring it back to the council. I think that's one thing that the vice mayor and I can certainly do. So thank you, vice mayor.
Thanks, Robin. So first and foremost, in reference to the Streetscape project, so yeah, that is going to come to you as a full proposal on April 21st. And I haven't seen what J2 has finalized, but I've been in every meeting leading up to this point, and it's going to be, I think you're going to be presented some options, whether or not it's a full streetscape, if there's an opportunity to fund that in its entirety at this point in time, meaning let's redo the sidewalks, let's redo the trees and the tree wells, and you know, there's new technology around how to support trees in a downtown now that didn't exist when this was done the first time. And at each intersection, what would it look like to have shade structures that are appropriate for our downtown and don't block entries into businesses? So we've been kind of looking at all of these options and their suggestions to see what would be best. And simultaneously, we're looking at the streetscape that was prepared a few years ago. And you, I'm sure, remember this for 5th Street. And you know, it would be at my request that we look at doing both of them. If we're going to tear up downtown, and if we can find funding, that would be great to do them both, so that we're not kind of staggering this over the next 10 years. It's not lost on me that we have a streetscape plan that exists right now that was done a decade ago. And of course, when people are looking at that plan from a decade ago, their first thought is we need to redo this. And yet I know sometimes we have to we're just forced to price things out and space out, you know, the use of funds over a long period. And my fear is that if we do that, we'll be in the same situation in 7 years or so, where we feel the need to redo the plan. So I am really excited about it. And I think J2 is a great firm, and they've done really good work, and they've done work around the valley. So there's other projects that you can look at. And so I think it's going to be a good presentation, and I'm very hopeful. With response to the homelessness concerns, you know, this is, and I'm glad that Naomi is on this meeting. I think it's something that we're never going to solve unless we're all in together. And there are so many ways to impact this that are long-term and systemic. And, you know, I mean, working on Hometown for All and eventually having more affordable housing within the downtown will also play into how we solve this and change this story over time. And we struggle, I mean, to be quite honest, with what exactly our role should be. And I know that PD struggles with, they don't want to, you know, enforcement is different than kind of reminding people of behaviors. And We want to be kind and caring, and also making sure that people behave in a way that allows everyone to enjoy our downtown. So it definitely is one of our biggest challenges. I don't know of a downtown that has fixed it, you know, that the goal is always zero. How can we get to zero people who are unhoused? And I don't know of a place that's done that, but I think that we can do our best to impact that. And we're open to suggestions if you can think of other ways, like our organization could be there as a supporter or using our resources. Yeah, it's a big challenge.
Yeah, you know what, Kate, I mean, I know, and it's a sensitive subject too, and I think you're right. We just want to make the downtown, and then we want to make our community great for everybody. So, you know, with that said, I'm wondering, is there, oh, hang on one second. Sorry about that. Is there like a situation? I know for a while there we had a situation where there was like a lot of aggressive panhandling. Are there any things specific that maybe that we could work on or we could share with Naomi, or if you think about it, what are some of the biggest challenges or the feedback that you're getting from, you know, people that come down there, whether they're vendors or businesses or just residents? I mean, that might be helpful too.
Well, some of the feedback that I've received from the merchants in this most recent canvas, as well as over time, is kind of the perception, specifically when there's homeless people that enter a business and an employee feels unsafe, or an employee is leaving a premise to go home and they feel unsafe because they have to pass by somebody sleeping on the sidewalk, or they have to have somebody moved from their front door before they can open their business. The perception is, and they feel unsafe. So there's some specific instances where there have been some more aggressive homeless people, more not panhandling, but just scarier, intimidating people that come into a business that require either a call from safety patrol or a call from PD. There have been some instances where there was, you know, a delay in time for people to respond, and that causes some fear on the part of the employees. And especially now with staffing being so difficult, having a female employee, specifically a couple of businesses mentioned this time fear for their female employees. They do not want to have a female employee working by themselves. If it's a small business, they need somebody else working there, and there may not be a second body to help them, and so they have to close early. So some of that, and some of this information isn't new. I mean, this is kind of the same feedback that we've always had. It's one of those kind of pervasive things of the perception of feeling unsafe, whether or not something actually happens, or something, to what degree something happens. It doesn't always happen, but I think kind of the narrative with something, you know, in the headlines happening in LA, it's kind of just waiting for something to happen and somebody should do something and not sure what. And that's kind of the language that I shared on the slide was deal with the homelessness, and whatever the deal means, you know, that's to be determined, but it's becoming a challenge for staffing for some of the businesses.
Well, I would just say this, and just my 2 cents is, I think we're doing everything that we can in the sense of first communicating with each other and just being straightforward in regards to the feedback. I mean, Naomi's here, like you said, and her team, and I know that they're going to take this information as we work on our comprehensive plan. I know this is going to be one of those things that we realize that we're going to have to address. So you're right. I'm glad Naomi and her team are here. I think it's really valuable information, and I appreciate you guys sharing that with us. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Arundel Savage and Lori and Kate. I don't have any follow-up at this time. I appreciate the presentation and look forward to continuing to support your efforts in downtown Tempe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's see here. Councilmember Arundel Savage, do you have any announcements?
I do not. How about yourself, Vice Mayor?
I don't either. So with that, our next meeting is Monday, February 28th, 2022 at 3 p.m. same WebEx, and we hope to see you then. This meeting's adjourned.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Vice Mayor. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you too.